When the Basi Legani Tovshin Chav Dalid, we're closer to the end. No. We're middle of Eis Aleph, where he says Mamshech Levayin, the third paragraph. Today's class is sponsored by Dr. Shmuel Akaka in memory of his grandfather, Shlomo ben Yecheskel. Shlomo should have an aliyah. Okay, the Rebbe is explaining. The Rebbe is explaining the Smaim again, the beginning of Basi Legani, basically, that the Shechina was here, the Shechina left. Rabbi is to bring it back by building the Mishkan, which is Kadesh, which is Sheker, transforming Sheker to Kadesh, transforming the Shtus of this world to Shtus of Kedusha. In other words, there's a normal path, but it has to be the normal path. If you go off the path to the left, then you have to go all the way to the right.
And the seventh was the heaviest, and seventh is the highest.
Seventh is the most precious because the seventh, just like between heaven to heaven, is not as severe as earth to heaven. Just like the first. So just like it took the biggest sin, Etadas, to get the Shechina off from the earth to the heaven, so it took the greatest tzaddik Moshe Rabbeinu with seventh to bring the Shechina back down. Well, Mamshech Levayin, he explains, the Rebbe says like this, the Rebbe continues to explain, Shebishvil shenitzachon ha-milchama, that in order to win the war, Yesh Inyan Ha'etzer, there's this treasure, Sheneis de Mumayla, which is given as a gift from above. Meaning, Bedug Mesinyan HaMilcha Ma'etzel Melech Basi V'Dam, like a milchama, like a war by a physical king. Shafil Ha'etzer Shalei Noga B'hem Ados, even the treasures that nobody even touched until now, which was, he says, not only his own treasures, but even from the king's parents and grandparents, they all accumulated a treasure. This treasure not only is given to people, nobody isn't even allowed to see it. That's how precious it is. Shem Yikodim Etzli Kolkach, that are so precious to him, he doesn't even show them. Nevertheless, to win a battle, the king throws out his life. He throws out all the treasures of his own. And the treasures that his parents had. And how does he do it? In a way of bizbuz. Bizbuz means he throws them out cheaply. He just doesn't care about them. By days and through that, he wins the war. So in other words, just like it is by a physical king, a king will just throw out all the treasures to win the battle. Hashem will reveal powers in the Muhammad of Hashem. Hashem will throw out all the revelations of godliness that are normally concealed, that they're never revealed, and he's going to throw them out to be able to accomplish this mission of transforming Shtus of world to Shtus of Kedusha. Well, Inyan Bezed, the Inyan is like this. She'inyan anitzochin, the Inyan of victory is mitzvah midas ha-netzach. That's the attribute of Netzach, right? Netzach, how'd you say? Shemagaz be'emek ha-nefesh b'yesir. So in the original Basi Legani, the Frierdiker Rebbe explains that this attribute of Netzach, Nitzochin, reaches in the depth of the soul. But we explained Friday that to win an election, they're going to throw out money that they would never even give anything, and they throw it out, and they, and for no reason, just for covet. The greater the person, the greater the person, the greater the power of victory is. Like the Gemara says, when it comes to not personal ego, but when it comes to Torah mitzvahs, any Talmid Chacham that doesn't take nekama, like revenge for Yiddishkeit, like a snake, ain't a Talmid Chacham. Why? Because for when it comes to right and wrong, which the Talmid Chacham means not only a guy that knows, but lives as a tzaddik, that person, for what's right, will fight to the ultimate level. That's the inyan of victory. But he says you have to be very careful because nekima, netira, revenge, tzrich liyasifiyat noim. It has to be based on the conditions. Shenizbrau b'gemaru poskim. You know, revenge normally is a very terrible trait. The Torah says you're not allowed to take revenge. So he says when the Talmud Chacham that's not neikim v'neited, that he doesn't take ultimate revenge for Yiddishkeit. He says you have to make sure though that it has to be according to Torah and Halacha. How much more so when it comes to a king? Shenyoni, the Indian of a king is Shemishich me'lamayla gavaya mikol am. Like it says by Shaul HaMelech, Shaul HaMelech was head and shoulders above everybody. Now obviously it means simply that he was very tall. But in the deeper sense, Chassidus explains, Shichmei Ulamayla, the head, represents Seichel. He was a head taller than everybody, meaning his level of Chochmah Velukus was way above everybody else's. Even the officers. That's a Nitzachin. So you can imagine that the attitude, the midah of Nitzachin is the take very powerful. Umitzad midas a Nitzachin because of love of Nitzachin. Therefore, even the treasures, so Tashurim ayin Adam, that no eye ever saw for generations, never saw these treasures. Label Zubelvat Shepesach Esav and Eslam. Not only does the king open the treasures and he gives them Eloeze Shemavazves Esam. He throws them out cheaply. In other words, the power of victory is so powerful by him, he doesn't care about anything else. Even these super high treasures, so to speak, that nobody was able even to see, he just throws them out. Umechalek Esam. And he gives them out through the officers. Which are the generals, the officers. But the intent of this is not for the generals. The generals don't fight the war. The ones that fight the war, a machayal, the simple foot soldier. In any war, who wins the battle? The generals tell you what to do. But who does it? Who gets it done? The Chayolim. Shem Davka Eisem and Yitzhak. What the Rebbe is saying is like, what the Rebbe is leading up to. We are the Chayolim. We're not the generals. Okay? In other words, for us to create this Mishkan, to make a Dira B'Tachtoinim, to transform Shtus to Shtus and Sheker to Keresh, that is given to all us, every single one of us. No, the Eitzvis. Even though the officers, they know all the strategy of war. Which people actually make the victory happen? He could explain at the end of the Maamar. From here we can understand they were able to win the war, to make the lies of the world, to make the boards of the Mishkan, sheker into Kaddish, to create v'shochanti b'seicham. Hashem gives from above not only revealed powers, but even the concealed powers. Like he says, you take the treasures which were concealed and he throws them out. But down here is the level like a treasure, which is normally concealed from anybody, milvad hamelech atzmi, except the king himself. In other words, treasures to the king are not hidden. Which means he's talking about a level of elokus that only Hashem knows its greatness, of that power of elokus. And that power of elokus, Hashem throws down and gives every Jew the koyach. In which this power is a level higher than any revelation, even of the highest revelation. This is still leading up to Perik Yudalit.
But this stuff is the lowest.
What?
This stuff is the very low middle.
No, but that's what he says. The Shayrish of Nitzachim is very high.
Sure.
V'nei hadar gachil yeina begilui. So the Rebbe is again explaining the Friedrich Rebbe's Maamar until Perik Yudalit. Then in his base he starts Yudalit. He says, what is gilui? He says this level of Eitzes is higher than the highest revelation. What's the highest revelation? So he says, hadar gachil yeina be'inyan agilui. The highest level is gili she'en le'sof ein le'tachlis. Like it says, or ein sof. So or ein sof has two meanings. Or of ein sof, meaning Hashem is ein sof, and this is the or of Hashem. Or, which it also means, or ein sof means the revelation itself is infinite. Now the definition is going to explain. The definition of infinite means there isn't a place where it doesn't shine. Because if there's a place all the way up or all the way down where the light is not revealed, then it can't be infinite because there's a place that doesn't exist, so it's automatically finite.
Why did you call Hashem and Source?
Well, because, he's even higher than Ein Sof, he's only Tchila. But Ein Sof also refers to Ein Sof Baruch Hu refers to Hashem. There's Or Ein Sof, you find the Chassidus expression, Or Ein Sof, or you found Ein Sof Baruch Hu. Ein Sof Baruch Hu means Hashem himself. But he's also Ein Tchila. But generally speaking, as far as revelations go, you have a revelation of the Or of Ein Sof, and you have the revelation of Ein Sof by itself. Okay, so he says, what the Tikkun is here says, Sha'or Ein Sof. What's the definition of Or Ein Sof? That the Or is infinite. L'mayla ad ein ketz, l'mata ad ein tachlis. It has all the way up and all the way down. That means all the way to the highest levels and all the way down to the lowest levels. V'hainu shemizeh shenikra b'shem Or. It's saying Or Ein Sof, right? Or means revelation, means light. That means light as a source. Shazal and Yishal Gilui Sharigeder Ha'or Gili. The definition of Or means it's a revelation. Aval Ein Za'or Gilui Stam. It's not Stam, a level of light. Ela Or Shenikra B'Shem Ein Sof. It's infinite, meaning Shalamai Lamailad and Ket Lamata Matad and Tachlis. It's Gilui. Again, we're using a mashal of Or, even though by Elokus it's not shining light. Okay, but we understand from the physical analogy of light what Elokus might be. When we see light, we understand two things. There's a source, number one. If somebody looks outside, okay, it's still dark, but you look outside, you don't have to see the sun. You know there's sunlight from the sun. You didn't look up to see the sun. You're in a building. But light reveals that what the source is. You know right away this is sunlight. But it's only Or. It's not the sun. It's not the sun itself. The sun is called Ma'or, the source of light. The Rebbe explains the greatness, what this means. First, the Friedrich Rebbe explains Mata adin tachlis, all the way down, and then he explains all the way up. Okay? So he says, Hainu ad madrega yesed mata shebeseder ishtalshlis, meaning like this. If you're saying Or Ein Sof is mata adin tachlis, it means that even in the lowest thing of klipa, Elokus is being revealed. Because if Elokus is not revealed in Chazer, or even worse, the actions of a person which are evil, which is even more klipa than the pig itself. Because the pig itself was created a pig, to be treif, to be forbidden. So shosh kibsat tameis. In the original Basi Legani, the Rabbi says in all the many Maamar, a person who chooses to be bad, that's even worse than something was created bad. It's not, they didn't do anything wrong. They are what they're supposed to be. A chazer is supposed to be a chazer. When a person's a chazer, when you say somebody's a chazer, give it, that's worse, because then you're choosing to do bad. That's the worst level of klipa. So he says, it comes into the lowest thing. Ad elam as a shoelam asiyah. In this world itself, not only in the level of kedusha and permissible things, he says it here, even the level of klipa, even in yanim she'lamata miklipa, even something lower than klipa. How can you have lower than shosh kibsat tameis? He says, "K'mavur b'Tanya," like Alter Rebbe says in Tanya, "Sha'adam achayta," a person who sins, the eved out of Chinese barach and transgresses the will of Hashem, who gerua is worse, who pachas habim ma'ed is even worse than the sitrach and klipa. A person who sins is worse than evil. Why? Or k'mayma yitish kadamach. Like even the mosquito comes before you. Why? Like we said, pig was created to be pig. It's fulfilling its mission that Hashem created it to be. So that's what Hashem wanted it to be. So it is. It's not doing anything wrong. A pig is not wrong for being a pig. But a person who sins chose to be evil. Not only the klipa that guards the fruit, even the level of klipa that convinces a person to transgress the will of Hashem, like he quotes in Tanya from the Zayar. The mosh of the prostitute that the king hired, says ben Melech. Like the Alter Rebbe quotes Tanya from the Zohar, that what's the concept of the Yetzer Hara? The concept of the Yetzer Hara is like this: a king had a son. He wanted to test the morals of the son. So when the son is in great places, you're not testing anything. So what does he do? He hires a prostitute to try to convince the prince to sin. Now, the king doesn't want the son to sin. He really doesn't want him to sin. The prostitute realizes it's the prince. She also really doesn't want him to sin. But she's hired to bring out the great morals of the prince, so she'll do everything possible to try to convince him to sin, with down deep hoping that he does. Even the Zaina hopes that he doesn't. And the same thing they said, the Alter Rebbe says with the Yetzer Hara. Yetzer Hara was created with a mission. You can't blame the Yetzer Hara for doing what it does. The Yetzer Hara was created with a mission to accomplish something. It does a very good job. But the Yetzer Hara itself doesn't want the person to sin. Because the Yetzer Hara, which is a creation of Hashem, realizes that this is Ben Melech. Banim Atam, we're Hashem's children. So therefore, the designer fulfills what the king wants it to do. On the other hand, somebody who sins and goes against the will of the king, is even lower than. So now the Rebbe is saying, mata adin tachlis means that even in the lowest level of klipa, i.e., the person that sins, which is worse than created klipa, then this itself, he says, is even a worse level than that. You have a level that a person sins, a guy will sin in worldly things. There's a worse level than that. Yash negamei fin shilamata mizeh shemishtamesh binyani kedusha. He uses kedusha lasis hepech ratzon elyon, to go against the will of Hashem. That means not only does he sin by eating treif or whatever, he uses kedusha for the sake of evil. Like he says, shazel kamosh la'eches. Like the one that holds the face of the king, Omeri dalamat, brings it all the way down, the time in pan of betzeich, into manure. In Tanya, now the Rabbi says that he takes the face of the king and he sticks him to manure. So you can imagine the embarrassment that you're doing to the king. So he says there's shosh k'tatameis. Then there's a level of a person sinning, which is even worse. Then the worst thing is, he takes Kedusha, makes it into evil. Which is much worse. Because then you're connected to the head of the king and you're dumping it into manure. With the Kayach of Teira, he says halach, which is against Teira. In other words, the person takes his Torah knowledge, and he rules against Torah. That's worse than a guy that does sins. Because now he's using Torah to sin. Okay, and that is the level of Elokus Mata Mata. And now the Rabbi writes like this. This is the first 13 prakim. Now he starts this year's parak, which is Parak Yudalid. So in Mem Dalid, the Rabbi explained it differently than he's going to explain it here. Like we learned the other Maamar. Okay, now he says A's base. We'll just start. Mamshach Parak Yudalid. In Parak Yudalid, the Friedrich Rabbi explains, calls it Ata Machayas Kulam Ksib. Says you give life to everything. Yeah? Ata Machayas Kulam. What does he explain over there? That this revelation of godliness is being brought down to give life and to create all creations from nothing into something. Meaning like this. He explains, we learned it in the other Maamar. The Rebbe says in Tanya, Ata is Aleph Tov Hey. Aleph is the first letter of the Aleph base, Tov is the last letter of the Aleph base. Okay? And Hey, the 5 represents the 5 formations of the mouth, of speech. You have the lips, the tongue, the throat, the stomach, the various 5 ways of speech. So the Alter Rebbe explains, Ata Mechayas Kula means the letters that Hashem said, Yehi Or, Yehi, all the various revelations of Hashem, that's what created the world. Ba'ata, the levels of Aleph to Tov, with the 5 formations of the speech, Mechayas Kulam gives life to everything. Which means a very limited level of Elokus is what's giving existence to the world. No, and. The word is Ata, it's and you. So the Vav is not part of the word. But Ata is Aleph Tov Hey in the Pasuk. So that's the way Elokus, or could eat a big guy, Simon Chaf. The ha'ara, a revelation of a revelation of a revelation is b'chol. If you remember, we learned in the other Maamar, Mem Daled, right? There's Or, there's Kayches, there's shame, right? The Or b'chol nivra v'neitzer, v'nasim, and it becomes, the creations of the world. She'or v'chayes alaki, which is the revelation of Elokus, Shenimshach b'chol hanivraim, that comes into creation. Like he says, or kamaim, like its expression, Hazan umefarnes, Hashem supports and sustains mikarni le'emim, from the horns of a, be'emim is like whether you have papanim, whatever, questionable what it means in Hebrew, but it means a very big animal, at beit zikinim, to the eggs of lice, to nits. The Gemara says the expression Hashem gives sustenance to the biggest creation all the way down to the lowest of the lowest creation, the most minimal creation. The Arva Chayis Meir v'nimsha gamba madrega Yosef tachtenim v'Yosef shvelim. That Elokus comes into the lowest of the low, like it says in the pasuk. Im esek shemaim shamata. If I go up to the heaven, you're there. V'atzia sha'el inaka. And if I make my bed in Gehenna, you're also there. So this is a pasuk in Tehillim, right? Im esek shemaim. If I go up to the heaven, you're there. That means you're in the highest place, God, and you're in the lowest place. Even though there's things that are so low, and there's many levels, nevertheless, Elokus is there. Okay, to be continued.
Well,